Ma'am, you need to stop resisting and get on the ground.
I'm standing still with my hands
You're
visible.
being belligerent. Get down now.
Officer, I'm a sitting federal judge. You're making a serious mistake.
I don't care who you think you are. On the ground.
My hands are empty. I'm not a threat, and your camera is recording this. But understand that every second of this is being recorded, and you're violating clearly established laws.
The security camera in the parking lot captured everything, every word, every movement. And Officer David Hutchkins had absolutely no idea that the woman he was about to handcuff had spent the last 19 years sitting on the federal bench, presiding over cases involving police misconduct, civil rights violations, and Fourth Amendment abuses. The woman standing next to the black Mercedes wasn't panicking, she wasn't crying, she wasn't begging. She was Judge Kesha Langford, and she had sentenced corrupt police officers to prison. She had ruled on qualified immunity cases, she had written legal opinions that became binding precedent in 3 states. And now she was about to become the plaintiff in a lawsuit that would cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars and end multiple careers. Before we dive deeper into this absolutely shocking story, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from, your country, your state, wherever you are. And if you believe in holding authority figures accountable when they abuse their power, hit that subscribe button. This story gets even more intense. You don't want to miss what happens next. Kesha Langford was not someone who expected special treatment. At 52 years old, she had been a federal judge for nearly 2 decades. She had handled death penalty cases, organized crime prosecutions, and complex civil rights litigation. She was fair, thorough, and known for holding both prosecutors and defense attorneys to the highest standards. That Saturday afternoon, Judge Langford had been shopping. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, just a regular weekend errand run. She had gone to a high-end outdoor mall in La Jolla, purchased some items for her home, and was loading shopping bags into the trunk of her Mercedes when everything went wrong. The car was hers, properly registered with current tags. She had the key fob in her hand. She was dressed in casual weekend clothes, jeans and a blazer. She was doing exactly what thousands of people do every day in parking lots across America, loading purchases into a vehicle and preparing to leave. Then she heard the voice behind her. "Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." Kesha turned around. A San Diego police officer was approaching her, hand on his service weapon, a position of readiness. Officer David Hutchkins was 36 years old, 8 years on the force, and responding to what he thought was a suspicious person call. Someone had reported a woman acting suspiciously near expensive vehicles in the parking lot. The description was vague: black female, medium build, near a black Mercedes. That was it. No description of suspicious behavior, just a black woman near an expensive car. Hutchkins had decided that Kesha was the suspicious person. Kesha kept her hands visible, one still holding her key fob. "Is there a problem, officer? I need you to step away from the vehicle and show me some identification." Kesha's legal mind immediately recognized what was happening. This was a Fourth Amendment seizure. Hutchkins had detained her without reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. She chose assertion. "Officer, I'm loading my own car with my own purchases. I have the key fob right here. What reasonable suspicion do you have that I'm engaged in criminal activity?" Hutchkins didn't like the question. "Ma'am, I'm investigating a suspicious person report. I need to see your ID." "What specific suspicious behavior was reported?" Kesha asked. "Because loading shopping bags into a car isn't suspicious, it's normal." "Someone called in a report." "A report of what specifically? What crime do they believe was being committed?" Hutchkins's hand tightened on his weapon. "Ma'am, you need to cooperate." "I am cooperating." I'm asking you to articulate the legal basis for this stop. That's not obstruction, that's my constitutional right. The confrontation was escalating. Other shoppers were starting to notice. One woman pulled out her phone and started recording from about 20 feet away. "I'm not going to ask again," Hutchkins said. "Step away from the vehicle and provide identification." Kesha made a decision. She would comply under protest, document everything, and handle this through the proper legal channels. "Officer, I'm going to comply with your request, but I want to state clearly that this stop lacks reasonable suspension and violates my Fourth Amendment rights. I'm reaching for my wallet now to retrieve my identification." She moved slowly, deliberately. She handed Hutchkins her driver's license first. "This your car?" he asked. "Yes." "Prove it." Kesha held up the key fob and pressed the lock button. The car's lights flashed and the locks clicked. "Satisfied?" she asked. Hutchkins should have apologized and left. He had detained someone loading their own vehicle with their own belongings. But Hutchkins had a problem. Backing down now would look like weakness. So he doubled down. "You're being belligerent and uncooperative. I'm going to need you to wait here while I verify this information." Have you ever been detained by police for doing absolutely nothing wrong? Type yes or no in the comments. Kesha felt her anger rising, but she kept it controlled. "Officer, I've provided identification. I've demonstrated ownership of the vehicle. There's no legal basis to continue this detention. Am I free to go?" "No, you need to wait while I run your information." "An investigation into what crime?" Hutchkins didn't answer. He walked back to his patrol car with Kesha's license. Hutchkins sat in his patrol car, running Kesha's license through the system. It came back clean. No warrants, no criminal history. The registered owner of the vehicle matched the license. Everything checked out. He had made a bad stop and continued it past the point of reasonableness. He got out of his patrol car and approached Kesha again. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to search your vehicle." "On what basis?" "I have reasonable suspicion that there may be stolen merchandise in the vehicle." "Based on what?" "I have receipts for everything I purchased." "Your reasonable suspicion is based on what specific articulable facts?" Hutchkins was trapped. He had no facts. He had a vague suspicious person report and his own assumptions. "Ma'am, you're being uncooperative. That gives me reasonable suspicion." "No, officer, it doesn't. Asserting my constitutional rights is not evidence of criminal activity. You cannot use my refusal to consent to a search as justification for reasonable suspicion." "Are you a lawyer?" "I'm a federal judge." The parking lot seemed to go quiet. Hutchkins stared at her. "You're a what?" "A federal judge. United States District Court, Southern District of California. I've been on the bench for 19 years, and you've just violated my Fourth Amendment rights in a way that is so clearly established that you won't be able to claim qualified immunity." Hutchkins's hand moved away from his weapon. "I need to see proof of that." Kesha reached back into her wallet and pulled out her federal credentials, the official United States Court's identification. Hutchkins took the credentials and studied them. "This could be fake," he said, but his voice had lost its authority. "Call the federal courthouse. Ask for Chambers. They'll confirm my identity." The woman who had been recording spoke up. "I've got all of this on video," she called out. "Everything." "We're past that point, officer," Kesha said calmly. "You've already detained me unlawfully. What you should do right now is return my identification, apologize, and call your supervisor. I'm not just going to file a complaint. I'm going to file a federal lawsuit. And every decision you make in the next 60 seconds is going to be evidence in that lawsuit." Hutchkins made his worst decision of the day. He decided to assert his authority. "Ma'am, turn around and place your hands behind your back." "I'm under arrest for what?" "Interfering with a police investigation." "There is no investigation. There's an officer who saw a black woman in an expensive car and made assumptions. But if you're going to arrest me, do it. The video is rolling. My credentials are in your hand, and you're about to make the biggest mistake of your career." Do you think the officer should have just apologized and walked away at this point? Let me know below. Hutchkins pulled out his handcuffs. Kesha turned around slowly. The metal cuffs clicked around her wrists. A small crowd was forming. "The police are arresting a federal judge for loading groceries into her own car?" another person answered. Hutchkins walked Kesha to his patrol car. She didn't resist. He placed her in the back seat. He drove to the police station. The drive took 11 minutes. When they arrived at the station, a female officer named Carmen Rodriguez was assigned to process her. When Rodriguez opened the wallet, she saw the federal judge credentials immediately. She looked at the ID card, looked at Kesha, looked at Hutchkins. "Where did you arrest her?" Rodriguez asked quietly. "Parking lot of the mall in La Jolla." What was she doing? Loading shopping bags into her car. Rodriguez immediately stepped away and walked directly to her watch commander's office. Lieutenant Marcus Freeman saw the federal judge credentials and his stomach dropped. He walked to the processing area, looked at Kesha, walked to his office, and made a phone call to the duty assistant chief. When Freeman hung up, he walked back to the processing area. "Judge Langford, I'm Lieutenant Freeman. I apologize for this situation. You're being released immediately. I want everything in writing: the initial call report, the body camera footage, the dash cam footage, the booking report. Officer Hutchkins' written statement of probable cause. Everything. I want them tonight." Freeman nodded. Kesha was uncuffed, her belongings returned. She was escorted out of the station by Lieutenant Freeman himself, who apologized 3 more times. Kesha sat in her living room processing what had happened. Then she picked up her phone and started making calls. The first call went to the chief judge. The second call went to her friend who practiced civil rights law. The third call went to the ACLU. The chief of police personally called Kesha to apologize. She listened politely and said she would be filing a federal lawsuit regardless. The lawsuit was filed on Wednesday, 23 pages, citing Supreme Court cases. The lawsuit alleged unlawful detention, unlawful arrest, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, and racial profiling. The city attorney's office reviewed the case. "This is indefensible," the city attorney said bluntly. "We detained a federal judge for loading her own car. The video shows it clearly. We need to settle." Before settlement negotiations could begin, the story leaked to the media. "Federal judge arrested while shopping" became a headline that spread across the country. The video from the woman in the parking lot was posted online. Within a week, it had been viewed over 15 million times. The San Diego Police Department opened an internal investigation. The investigation found that the suspicious person call had been made by a mall security guard who later admitted he thought Kesha looked out of place near expensive cars. Hutchkins had responded to that vague call and immediately focused on Kesha based on race. He had detained her without reasonable suspicion. He had arrested her for asserting her constitutional rights. The investigation also found patterns in Hutchkins's history. Over the previous 3 years, Hutchkins had made stops involving black motorists at a rate 2.8 times higher than the department average. Officer David Hutchkins was terminated 6 weeks after the incident. The termination letter cited multiple violations: unlawful detention, unlawful arrest, racial profiling. Hutchkins tried to appeal. His union representative reviewed the footage and told him, "You're finished. The video is too clear. The victim is too credible." The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division opened an investigation into the San Diego Police Department's stop and search practices. They analyzed 5 years of stop data. Their findings were released in a 97-page report. Black residents were stopped at rates significantly higher than white residents. Black motorists were searched at rates 3 times higher, despite being less likely to be found with contraband. The San Diego Police Department entered into a consent decree with the Department of Justice, mandating comprehensive reforms. Kesha's lawsuit settled 9 months after the incident. The settlement amount was reported to be $675,000. Kesha donated the entire settlement to civil rights organizations working on police reform. "I don't need the money," she told reporters. "I need the system to change. I need other people who don't have my resources and position to be protected from what happened to me." The parking lot security footage became required viewing at police academies across California. 1 2-hour detention in a parking lot led to a terminated career, a $675,000 settlement, a federal consent decree, and systemic reforms that affected how an entire police department operated. Kesha Langford returned to the bench. In private conversations, Kesha has said that what happened to her wasn't unique. It was just documented. She said thousands of Black Americans experience similar treatment every day. But they don't have federal credentials, they don't have legal knowledge, and they don't have the resources to fight back. The security camera footage is still online. You can watch it yourself. You can see a federal judge calmly asserting her rights while being detained for the crime of shopping while Black. You can see what accountability looks like when the system actually works. What's your biggest takeaway from this story? Drop it in the comments below. This story matters because Kesha Langford had every advantage. She had legal knowledge, she had credentials, she had position and authority, and she still got handcuffed in a parking lot for loading shopping bags into her own car. Think about everyone who doesn't have those advantages. Everyone who gets stopped and searched based on assumptions. Kesha's story shows that even when you have every advantage, bias can still affect you. But it also shows that accountability is possible, that the system can work, that consequences can follow violations. If this made you think differently about police accountability and racial profiling, share it with someone who needs to see it. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to keep bringing you stories that matter. Drop a comment. Do you think $675,000 was enough? What would real accountability look like? See you in the next one.